You know, I honestly thought that the series would redeem itself. I really did. The Terminator franchise has been so convoluted that it doesn't even really matter that much anymore.
When this is all over, I am going to kill you.
I understand.
The Terminator. James Cameron's masterful work from 1984 is about the dangers of advanced technology. There's a war going on between the Resistance, the original Resistance, and the machines. A Terminator, known as the T-800, is sent back to the past to kill the mother of the future leader of Resistance, Sarah Connor, while a soldier in this future, Kyle Reese, is sent to protect her. It's an 80s classic that still holds up today, and it is a really good movie. Not only that, but it launched the careers of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Linda Hamilton. Definitely one not to be missed. The sequel, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, often considered one of the best sequels ever made, is about a new Terminator made of liquid metal known as the T-1000 sent to kill Sarah's son John, while the T-800, who reprogrammed, is sent to protect John, while simultaneously forming a friendship over the course of the film. An interesting story. I don't think I really need to say anymore because everybody knows the first two, and both are classics. Then it became a franchise, and this is where things get crazy. I never saw 3 Rise of the Machines. Salvation actually wasn't too bad. I mean, it has a cool look to it, but other than that, it's okay. The story's okay. Genesis was utter garbage. The story made absolutely no sense. The characters were flat. The fact that they retconned the first movie and changed the whole timeline made absolutely no sense. And just because you throw in Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't automatically guarantee that it's a good movie. It's just terrible. One of the worst sequels I have ever seen.
I told you the reason why the movie was terrible is because Arnold was good, everybody else is poor cast, acting was horrible, everything was horrible.
Story made no sense.
The only good thing about it was only Arnold. That's it. Nothing else.
Even he couldn't save it. So you think, Terminator Dark Fate, you think that maybe, just maybe, it would redeem itself. That with Linda Hamilton from the first 2 back,
Sarah
and
Connor.
Arnold Schwarzenegger as the T-800, you think that it would redeem itself. Well, my verdict, and this is my honest opinion, and this is taken with a grain of salt, it is better than Genesis. But there are still things about it that do not make sense. And I'm going to go over them as we go along tonight. Let me tell you something. Terminator Dark Fate, while it tries to hit the reboot button, thank God, it still has its own share of issues of not explaining anything, plot elements that are so vague and don't make any lick of sense. But even if you watched video explanations on how the story flows, they don't answer the most important question. Why? I'm going to break this down, okay? So that way, you will be able to understand this. Dark Fate begins 1 year after the supposed events of Judgment Day 1997, where we see Sarah Connor and her son John relaxing on the beach. Suddenly, a Terminator who looks like the T-1000 decides to kill John Connor. This is jarring because remember the bond that they shared in T2? Yeah, well apparently all of that was thrown out the window and now replaced with this. It was just jarring, sudden, and out of nowhere. And you may be saying, whoa, is this just one scene? No. This moment comes back throughout the entire movie. This is Sarah Connor's reasoning for wanting to hunt down Terminators as an act of revenge. But even though it's cool to see Linda Hamilton back into the series, I still have to ask this question. Why would he take out John Connor?
Okay, he was reprogrammed by Legion. Any Terminator can be reprogrammed to do whatever, dude. Okay, if you remember the time in Terminator 2, I think he was reprogrammed and sent back to Terminator 3. He was sent back to Terminator 3 and he came back. He was reprogrammed. Okay? He was reprogrammed in many kind of ways. First, he was evil, and someone reprogrammed him to be good, and he was sent back to be good again. So mostly, they can be reprogrammed to be good or bad. Doesn't matter what they do. They always get reprogrammed. What it actually explained was that after John Connor and Sarah Connor destroyed Skynet, other Terminators that were there escaped, and one of them followed the young Terminator that you saw right now, followed John Connor. After they followed him...
Why would they follow him?
Most of them followed John Connor. One of them catched up to John Connor. I think they kept on, each time I think they had to drive away, hide somewhere, drive away, hide somewhere. I think that's how they primarily escaped probably, and I think each time they tried to escape, it tried to follow them each time, and they afterwards, they're on the beach, then finally, the young Terminator comes along and shoots John Connor. That's what actually happened.
And now we have our new character. Grace, an advanced human from a different future, is sent to protect a woman who was in Mexico named Danny from another Terminator. We've been here. The Terminator, known as Rev 9, who is part of a group known as Legion, is sent to destroy her. We've been here before, guys. Remember the T-1000? The only difference is that the Rev 9 can split in two. Wow, we're really being advanced here. I don't even know what the Rev 9 is made out of. So Sarah Connor finds the two of them and tries to protect both of them from the Rev 9's destructive capabilities. These movies have a huge ego when it comes to developing the future. The first two made sense. 1997, Judgment Day. It made perfect sense. John Connor, leader of the Resistance, the Terminator, sent to take out the mom of the leader of the Resistance. Kyrie is sent back to protect her, and the T-800, who's now reprogrammed in Terminator 2, is sent to protect John from the T-1000. It made perfect sense. It was focused. And then this movie tries to establish the fact that there are now two futures going on. One that Sarah Connor stopped, and the other that another half-human, half-machine named Grace came from that future, where the Legion was created to take out this other resistance.
Did you know Grace was actually physically damaged in the war at a particular time? She was actually fully human back then. She was, but
she was enhanced.
Mostly, she's still a real human, but she's physically insane because she got hurt and things like that. And
she's physically enhanced.
She got hurt she got hurt before, and she just got repairs.
Sarah Connor comes in at the most pinnacle moment where the Rev 9's about to wipe them out. Sarah Connor, that was a good scene. Sarah Connor comes in and she saved 3 billion people from Judgment Day, but apparently she says that a Terminator took out John Connor from what she says a future that doesn't exist. Here's the problem. If this is a completely different Terminator, then two things. One, why is he able to admit it? The T-800 is not usually known to admit things, so why is he admitting that he killed John Connor? Also, is this even the same T-800? I thought he sacrificed himself at the end of Terminator 2, but no, apparently he decided to come back. And here's another thing, the whole Terminator's escaping doesn't really make much sense when you take into consideration that pretty much all the Terminators were wiped out, so how exactly were they able to locate John and Sarah Connor when it was pretty much established that the future was saved? It really doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. As a writer, you need to explain these concepts of future that doesn't exist, quote unquote, because it didn't make any sense here.
Even though Arnold admitted what he did was wrong, he knew what he did was wrong. Dude, no robot does that. A lot of robots don't admit what they do wrong, but this one does, because it has a physical conscience. Because it made It had conscience now because it has it. Other Terminators don't have that remorse. He started to implement, he started to get it slowly down the line, even though he did something wrong.
But why would he do it in the first place?
I
That's
told
the
you,
question.
he was reprogrammed.
Who reprogrammed
Legion.
him? Who created Legion?
Okay, listen. First, no.
Skynet was destroyed.
Skydance was destroyed, but some other robots escaped. So that Terminator that you saw before was Skynet robot. That was the T-800, the young T-800. That was Skynet robot. That was not Legion's robot. That was Skynet robot. Okay.
Are you trying to tell me that before the building where Skynet was being created was destroyed, some escaped?
That's what Sarah Connor actually was explaining to you.
But was he aware that he was reprogrammed? Was he aware that he was somehow
Maybe,
morphed into
okay,
something?
I think what happened was that after they rebuilt him, whatever that is, maybe he knew about John Connor somehow, like, oh my god, and so it was save John Connor, and maybe they hold him down probably somewhere after they rebuilt him back to the way he was. Then, like, we need to reprogram him and send him back to kill John Connor, something like that, whatever that is. That's my theory, probably.
But have you noticed how all these movies, the Terminators seem to come from the future? Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Did this future happen or not? Because at this point, Grace says that in her future, and I put this in quotes because the word future seems to be really doesn't even exist. She was part of this group of fighters that were trying to fight what are known as Legion, an AI created warfare agency that was said to take out. They nuked the entire world, and thus were trying to fight them. And so apparently they make this accusation that the reason why they're saving Danny is because of the fact that she is a resistance fighter in this future. Grace and Sarah Connor have been getting these texts, these cryptic texts from an unknown source. Before they find Arnold Schwarzenegger, apparently they've been getting these cryptic texts, and both of them have been getting these cryptic texts for several years. They have both been getting these cryptic texts, and they just happen to end up in one location. Every few months or so, they get the same cryptic text of where a Terminator is, the exact date, time, and place. And they both have been getting these same text messages. But if Grace is from the future, and Sarah Connor is from the supposed present, then how is Grace getting these same text messages? John Connor is not from her future. So why would
Grace is not
John
getting
Connor
that.
is not from Grace's timeline?
No, Grace is not
so
getting
why
any
would
of that. Grace is
getting these text
the
messages?
Grace, the Terminator lady?
Half human, half robot.
No,
yes.
she's not getting the text.
Yes, she is. She's been getting the same coordinates. She's been getting these same text messages for John or whatever. What I'm saying is this. If Grace is from a different timeline, how is she getting those text messages? How is she getting these pieces of information?
Did they say that? Did they say that Grace got the text?
Yes.
Okay.
How is she getting the text? Where is she getting these messages from? If she's from a completely different future, then why is it that she's getting the same messages? Sarah Connor makes sense, totally, because they're from the present. But why would Grace be getting
Maybe
them?
time paradox, probably, is what I'm thinking. Because if you see, did you see the girl? She is the one who saved the other girl. Dana's the one who saved the girl. She's the one who saved her life. That means she
From the future.
From the future. So that means there's a time paradox connected to this. That's the reason why she's been getting this text abruptly. Probably. Maybe the time paradox is connected to this.
Yeah, and that's why it's confusing. It's almost like the writers acknowledge that the first two movies happened, but in doing so, they also fall victim to the same problems with the other movies. They add stuff, create their own timelines, and thus they don't seem to have a clear focus. Let me tell you something. I tried really hard to follow the plot of this movie. I really did. The first 20 minutes was insane. All it was were vague concepts. Vague concepts that tried to somehow shift the focus of a movie when the focus kept changing. It's nothing but, this, but there's no why. There's no why in this movie at all. And that's a thing that these movies like to do. They don't like to explain why, they just like to explain how. It wasn't because the T-800 sacrificed himself at the end of Terminator 2. So are they trying to say that...
How would
if they're trying to say that it takes place after Terminator 2, they needed to tie this up more. Just saying, oh, we're going to throw Sarah Connor in there. Oh, we're going to throw Arnold Schwarzenegger in there because we're going to put the nostalgia fact. We're going to raise the nostalgia factor high. The only time the movie actually does get better is when Arnold Schwarzenegger shows up, and the movie actually does slightly improve. He takes on the name Carl, has an adopted family of his own, and is able to understand the concept of reasoning and consciousness. And the movie does get better with the plane sequence, and pretty much the story does stay focused, but by then, your brain is just like, okay, are we really supposed to care? I mean, I did kind of like the third act when he did show up, but still, I have my doubts if this movie is actually worth watching. The action scenes are well done to a certain extent, but other than that, there really isn't much to them. The ending, oh my god. The ending is a little bit on the ridiculousness side. So once the characters are set up for the climax, the Rev 9 is all like, give me the girl, we've been through this before, we're in the same position, when they obviously know that they're not going to do it. So why write this dialogue in? We know that the villain is obviously going to lose, so it would be better if he just never said anything. Although the climax is decent and a good finale, unfortunately the first 30 minutes does become very problematic to the point where I don't know if you'll be able to fully understand it all. While it's a far better movie than the other Terminator movies that had come before, minus T1 and 2, still, this movie falls victim to the Terminator, what I like to call the Terminator complex, where they add all these concepts, add all these timelines that don't make any sense, and it's like if you ever went to a sewing class and you had to like knit something. Well, imagine if like you knitted it wrong, and so it just dangles like crazy. Your project dangles like crazy. That's what it feels like. There's nothing to connect it. And for me, honestly, I could talk forever, but my brain is already hurting anyway. I'm sorry, guys, if you like this movie, that's fine. At least you were able to find some enjoyment. But for me personally, I'm sorry. At this point, Terminator, I'm done with this series.
Okay.
If James Cameron was the director of a movie, it probably would have been different. But James Cameron was the producer. Tim Miller, who directed Deadpool, is the director of this one.
At least it was not that bad. It wasn't that. It could have been much worse.
Fair.
It could have been. Someone else could have directed it. Someone probably would have boycotted it like pretty crappily. At least it was not that bad. It's not great. It's not amazing. There is some stuff that actually are messed up in there. But to me, 7 is the best score I can give this movie. It's not amazing. It's not a 10. It's not a 9. It's not an 8. But it's a 7 for me because I enjoyed it. Half the time, I was not bored of it. Hell no, I was not bored of it. I didn't leave out of the theater disappointed. To me, I enjoyed the movie all the way through. It was fun. I came out excited. I had high expectations for this film, and it kind of delivered in a way to a point. Genesis was horrendous. Salvation was also bad. But it does improve upon those particular movies, but those two particular movies are not canon to the series at all.
I was going to give it a 5, but then I thought, you know what? It was better than Genesis. It still doesn't make any sense, but at the very least, it wasn't Genesis. Yeah, the series is just... I'm not going near it to another Terminator movie again. As far as I'm concerned, the only time travel movies that I need are The Time Machine and Back to the Future trilogy.
Okay, I give it a 6.
No, I give it a 6.
Sorry. He gives it a 6, and I give it a 7.